Sounds good.
Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura Zingmond from a senior editor at InsideSchools, and today we'll be presenting with Maurice Frumkin from NYC Admission Solutions. We've teamed up in the past to help families navigate high school admissions, and we got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. You can go on next slide. Oh, and I also want to give a shout out to my colleague Gigi Hernandez, who Spanish project lead at InsideSchools, and she will be over on a different channel presenting in Spanish along with Stephanie Murena, who just spoke, and she also works with NYC Admission Solutions. So thank you, Gigi and Stephanie, and they'll be presenting on the separate channel. And hello again. I have worked, that's actually probably more like 20 years experience, writing about covering New York City public schools. I served on the panel for educational policy, and I am a native-born New Yorker. I grew up in New York City, attended public schools K-12, as did my children, and I'm really happy that everyone's here. And if you're joining us, you're getting this is the perfect time to get started on the high school process. Maurice?
Thank you, Laura. It's an honor to be here with everyone tonight, to be kicking off the high school process and to be here with Laura and the team from InsideSchools. My name is Maurice Frumkin. My company is NYC Admission Solutions. We are a small consulting firm. We work with families and organizations across the city on school placement, everything from pre-K all the way up through college admissions. High school admissions is definitely a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm really honored to be here tonight, and we'll turn it immediately back to Laura.
Thank you, Maurice. All right, just real quick housekeeping issues. The application will be opening soon. Most things will not change, but we're covering the information covered tonight will reflect the most up-to-date information we have. Sometimes things change, sometimes even after the application opens. So everything we discussed, keep in mind, likely there won't be any major changes, but things are subject to change. We are recording this presentation and we will share it after. And please, we'd really appreciate if you just, after the end of the presentation, if you stay on for just a couple of minutes to answer a quick survey. It really helps us. And we're covering a lot of information. If you would like to replicate part or all of the presentation, please just reach out for permission. Thank you very much. Appreciate all that. All right, now let's just take I would say, mile-high view of the high school admissions process. In a nutshell, there are 3 avenues for applying to New York City public high schools. We think of them as buckets. The first bucket is sometimes known as the main application. You hear that's the one where you rank 12 schools in order of preference. Everyone participates in this, the main application. Everyone fills this bucket. And after you submit the application in early December, there's a few months, and then you find out in March, you will get matched to one school from the main application. Now, there are 2 optional buckets you can fill. And unlike the main application where you're guaranteed a placement, you will be placed at a school via the main application. The 2 other buckets, you don't have to participate in, you don't have to fill up, and you're not guaranteed a seat from them. The first is the specialized high schools, the 8 exam-based specialized high schools. They admit students solely based on their performance on the specialized high school admissions test, also known as the SHSAT, also known as the SHSAT. All 3 mean the same thing. There are 8 schools. You can apply up to 8. You will get matched at 1 if you score high enough. You're not guaranteed to be matched at 1, but if you are matched, you'll be matched at only 1. And the third bucket for our aspiring artists is LaGuardia High School. That is also a specialized high school. It has the same status as the exam-based ones, except this one, you don't take a test, you audition. And LaGuardia has multiple programs. And so let's say you are super talented and you audition for dance and theater and music, and visual arts program. And let's say you're so amazing that you actually get offered spots at all four. You could actually get multiple offers to LaGuardia for each of the programs, one offer from the test-based specialized high schools. And of course, you will definitely have one placement offer from the main application. Again, the first bucket, everyone participates in, the second two are optional, and you're not guaranteed to get matched. And that's sort of the high school process, the Mile High view. And now let's take a deeper dive. And we can move on to the next slide. Okay, first, key dates. Next week, MySchools, which is both the official online directory for schools at all levels, including high school, and it's also the official online application. Next week, at some point next week, the DOE will refresh all the information for high schools so that the information on each high school's page will reflect the criteria and all the program information that will apply for students applying this fall for a seat next September. The DOE will be starting probably a month long series of high school admission sessions. Some will be general. I think some may actually focus on certain areas, and they'd start September 30th. October 1st, the high school application opens. If you attend a New York City public middle school, your guidance counselor will ensure that you get the activation code and you can access it then. If you attend an independent school, it may take a little longer, but that's when it opens. But really, you don't have to do anything other than get access to it at that point. The other important date for October 1st is that you may register for the SHSAT or the SHSAT, and you have until October 18th to do that. Once you log on to your MySchools account, there'll be an option to just register. Just do it. When you get on, if you're planning to take the SHSAT or the SHSAT, just register as soon as you access your application. And then the main application closes December 4th, and also the application for LaGuardia closes December 4th. And then high school offers will be available March 6th. Okay, at this point, I just want to take a stop for a second and take a real snap poll. We're very curious. We have over 1,000 people registered for this event, and we really want to get a sense of where you are in the process. Have you received any help or any guidance up until this point from your school? And so if you can just take this really quick snap poll, we'd greatly appreciate it. Maurice, there we go. Everybody can just, thank you. Wow. A lot of responding. Appreciate it. So it looks like it's the people are still responding. Thank you very much. But looks like people are split. Some people have gotten help and others have not gotten as much help yet or any formal introduction. Okay, great. So we're about roughly 50-50 in terms of not quite that, but it seems to be a split. So for those of you who have had some introduction to it, some of this may be review, but we hope to really offer some nuance to it and get you started on your high school application journey. And for those who haven't received any help or guidance yet, you're at the right place, starting at the right time. And okay. Okay, so now we're going to take a deeper dive. what to consider. There are a lot of things you have to sort of learn about and manage while you're applying to high schools. Some of them are process oriented, such as the admissions criteria, demand how many applicants per seat. The schools that get far more applicants than are seats, you have to take that into account in terms of your chances. Some schools are either give priority or only open to students from certain regions, including zone schools. But there are also more personal things, what matters to you and your options. And that is should really be the focus early on in your application journey and your research. And I'm going to discuss those two. And sometimes I refer to them as the picks, what you have to do to, pick the schools you apply to. And then Maurice will go into the nitty-gritty of the process. So moving on to the next slide. All right, what matters to you? This is personal. Before you research schools, research your needs and take a few moments to reflect on that. Small versus large. Some small schools tend to offer more personal attention. The principal may get to know the name of every student, and that's always nice. The guidance counselors often have a lighter load. They're not managing as many students. Sometimes they have advisories, small group advisories. And those are very nice. And there is also larger schools that have many more offerings, more extracurriculars, but sometimes some students can get lost in the shuffle. It may be harder to, you get guidance support and college application support, but they tend to be better at smaller. There's also a bunch of schools, maybe, I don't even know if there are 20 that fall into the mid-size category, roughly 800 to 1,500. And when I say small, I'm really talking about maybe 700 or smaller. Some schools go down to 200-300, large 2,000, more than 1,500. And then there's the in between the mid-sized schools, maybe 700-800 to around 1,400-1,500. And some of those schools sometimes offer some of the perks of the small and large school. Another thing you want to consider is fast track versus laid back. Some schools are just very intense. The specialized high schools we spoke about, that second bucket and the third bucket, LaGuardia, are intense. Students will have a heavy load of work early on. Not every 14-year-old can handle that. By junior year, things tend to get intense for most students if you're certainly on track, passing your classes, because by junior year, you're probably, hopefully, if you pass Regents, you're taking advanced courses, you are getting involved in extracurriculars, and maybe you're taking a managing role in one of the, or leadership role in the extracurriculars. You're also starting your college search and studying for those things. So by junior year, it can become intense for most students. The question is, not all schools start off super intense, and that's something to explore when you research schools and visit schools. Tone and environment. Some schools are more traditional in their instructional style. Teachers maybe do more of the lecturing and students listening. Some schools are more collaborative in nature, where kids tend to work in groups a lot during the lessons. Some schools, it's just, it's built into their ethos to meet kids where they are. Some examples, in addition to advisories, sometimes teachers keep their rooms open during lunchtime for students to come who are, students who are not comfortable in the cafeteria. They can go have their lunch or hang out in a classroom. Little things like that. Smaller schools tend to have a more nurturing environment, but not all. So keep that in mind. Commute, this is a biggie. High school is a citywide process. It is pretty darn hard to avoid a commute to high school if you're a New York City kid. You may be lucky. There may be a few who end up going to a school that's very close. But even if you end up going to a zone school, not everyone has a zone school. In fact, most don't. But in some parts of the city, there are still schools that have zones. Even if you end up going to your zone school still may be a bus ride away. maybe a short bus ride, but you may not be able to walk to it. So how long is too long a commute? It really depends on the student. Aim for no more than 45 minutes to an hour. But there are other factors, including transfers. You can handle a longer commute if you don't have to transfer a lot or at all. So if you decided I don't want to travel more than 45 minutes, but there's this school that's more like an hour commute, but you don't have to transfer, it's your local line, and you just have to stay on the train for another 10, 15 minutes, that's not a big deal. The other thing to consider is the time that school starts, and you don't have a whole lot of control on it, but some schools start early before 8 a.m. And there are some schools that start after 9 a.m. Some as late as almost 9:20, 9:30. I will say that an hour commute is a lot more manageable if you have to get to school at 8:45 or 9 than if you have to get to school at 7:45. So consider that, and maybe do a few test commutes before completing the application. And then, it's important to also think about what matters in high school. All schools should offer all students, 4 years of math and science. It may not be necessarily the traditional path to calculus. Some students might not be interested in that, but schools should offer every student opportunities to take some courses in math and science for all 4 years, and should even encourage it. And they do that for the reluctant learners, or by offering interesting courses that maybe in applied math or forensic science. So when you explore schools and visit them, ask about the offerings. Students need to learn to write. And schools take different approaches to writing instruction, but some do a better job than others, and some really are very purposeful in incorporating explicit writing instruction, sometimes by offering specific, writing classes. All freshmen take a separate writing class in addition to English, or juniors take a writing class. Some actually just build in writing across all the subjects. There is no one right way, but ask schools about their philosophy and how they teach writing. Don't assume because you're taking English, you might end up writing a bit, but you may not get explicit writing instruction and support, and that's very important. All schools to some degree offer upper level advanced courses. They don't have to be college level. Larger schools have usually have more. Small schools typically partner with colleges and to offer additional ones. There's the College Now, but see what kind of courses the school offers and see if they're in person, taught by high school teachers who are also trained and experienced in teaching students who are teens, versus they offer some courses where you have to travel to a local college and maybe taught by a professor. You might be fine by that, but they may not be as experienced teaching 16-year-olds as a high school teacher. Find out what courses are the digital learning, find out what courses are online, find out what kind of supports. When they say tutoring, do they mean tutoring programs, or do they mean in-person tutoring? Extracurricular activities are not an extra in high school. They're very important to the experience. You should, that's where you make friends in high school. That's where you take healthy risks. That's where you discover your passions or indulge in your passions if you already know that. And all schools offer extracurriculars. Some schools, offer some, other schools offer other, you can't get involved in too many. So if there's a small school that has a range of extracurriculars that you like, then you're set. But you should also explore that. That is very important at the high school experience. And then inclusive curriculum. Students see themselves reflected in the books they read, teachers who are there, and also how do schools navigate different students differences and arguments. They can agree to disagree without being combative or anything. And restorative justice is something that a lot of schools are adapting. So when students have conflict, they talk it out, they get support, they learn how to make amends, and that's also part of the inclusive curriculum. And these are things you should be asking about and looking at when you consider schools. And then we can go on to the next slide. Okay, so now we looked inward. Now we're going to look outward. The main application, that first bucket that everyone has to fill. There are 400 plus high schools, and actually you don't apply to a school, you apply to a program. So there are over 700 programs that you apply to. So each line on that application would be a program. For some small schools, the school is the program, but even a lot of small schools may have two programs. And if you like the school, you apply to both programs in the school. Large schools may have 7, 8 programs. And so the main application options, there are the large neighborhood schools. Those are probably what many parents attended, whether you lived in the city or not. I certainly did. I grew up on Staten Island. I attended Port Richmond High School, which was my zoned neighborhood school, even though it was about 4 miles from me and I had to take a bus there. The neighborhood schools usually are open to all students zone, but they typically also have multiple programs that are open either to students citywide or maybe students in the borough. And those programs may be themed. They're more prevalent in some boroughs, Queens. There are a couple in the Bronx still, Queens, Staten Island, and Brooklyn. There are, Manhattan doesn't have any. The next category is career and technical education, and this is, or CTE, and this is a growing and very popular area of high school education. The city has nearly 300 programs across roughly 130 schools. So there are a lot of options for CTE. And what do we mean by CTE? Career and technical education prepare students for skills in a particular job or field, while also delivering a comprehensive high school education. It's not what you think of in vocational. You will take a full load of academic courses and also take a class or 2 a day in learning about a particular field. And a lot of the programs, not all, also offer the opportunity to earn professional certifications in the field that you can use to actually get work while you attend college, or if you just decide to work after graduating high school. The CTE is a very broad category. There are many, many types of, just an example, there's advertising, film, software engineering. I'm reading off the list because I can't remember them all off the top of my head. Aviation, engineering, architecture, medical support, graphic arts, agriculture, and that's just a few. So it's important when you're looking at a CTE program or a school that offers. Some schools, the entire school, the small school usually is CTE. It's revolves around a particular discipline, maybe like advertising or film. There are also schools, including some large neighborhood schools, that just offer CTE programs. So only select students will participate in it while they're taking their regular high school courses, academic courses. And then there are some schools that offer multiple CTE programs, like Thomas Edison in Queens, which is an entire it's a large school that offers, I think, 7 different CTE programs, and they're not around a particular theme. There are multiple. You can do automotive, you can do engineering, you can do medical support. There's just a range, and they're not necessarily connected to each other. Another type of school is early college. Most of them run the traditional 4 years, but there is a growing category of New York City public schools that run for 6 years. They are sometimes known as P-TECH schools, named for the original 6-year program. These schools partner with a college, and typically by junior year, students start taking classes at the partner college. Almost all of them are with a local CUNY college. The one big exception is Bard. There are Bard early college high schools. There are now 4 in the city, and those are affiliated with Bard, which is upstate New York, but students don't travel to Bard. They take everything at their New York City public school. So the goal of an early college is that students start attending college. Typically by junior year, you start taking classes at the college. Usually there are staff from the school who will be on site at the college to offer students support. And then students take other classes. So some days they might be at the local college, some days they're at the high school. And the goal is, you have the option, not everyone will graduate with an associate's degree. The 6-year program, that's the goal, that you stay for 6 years and you graduate with an associate's degree, which you then can take on to a 4-year college and transfer the credits. And you get that for free, those first 2 years of credits. But even in the 4-year programs, you can earn a lot of college credits for free, which can transfer to the college after you graduate high school. Another category is a smaller one called the International Baccalaureate Schools, and or sometimes known as IB. And the IB degree is accepted at universities in countries around the world. It's a very demanding curriculum. Particularly the junior and senior year courses really are college level. If you're looking at an IB school, you may notice there are not as many advanced placement courses, which are college courses. That's because students are working on the IB courses to earn the IB diploma, which is a very, very high standard and very rigorous standard. Another category are the performance assessment schools, sometimes also known as consortium schools. These are project-based schools. Now, a lot of schools will offer project-based learning in some classes, or even a lot of them. But these schools truly are organized around the philosophy that students learn best when they do a lot of hands-on work and research work, and they dive deeply into topics. They may cover fewer topics over the course of the year, but they really dive deeply. There's a lot of research and writing, and the consortium schools, because of the sort of alternative approach, students who attend them are exempt from taking all but the English Regents exam. So that's not a reason, because in place of those Regents exams, students will, in the main subjects, have to complete these major, what they call PBATs, project-based assessment, performance-based assessment tests, and they usually involve a lot of research. They're a deep project. They have to do oral defense of it. I've sat in on a few of them. It's weeks and months of work to do that, but it really is an interesting and engaging way to learn, and there are roughly 30 high schools that do that. Arts-focused schools. Now, there are a lot of schools that offer rich arts curriculum, and some of them may even have an arts theme, but for these, I'm referring to the more consortium style arts schools, the ones that require auditions, whether it's for visual arts or performing arts. And that is an option for students. And like the CTE, they also offer a broad academic offerings as well. And then there's a category, it's not an official category, I just call general academics. There's some schools that don't fit into any of these categories. There's actually a bunch of them. Some of them may even have themes, but they're not necessarily CTE or arts. And some of them don't even have themes. They offer, general academics. It's maybe, what we're used to from a generation ago, where most high schools didn't have a particular theme. They can be quite good. They just don't they're not organized around a particular instructional philosophy or theme. So the takeaway is you have a lot of options, and know that these are all the options you can explore to fill that first bucket, the main application. Now on to the next one. All right. And then remember the second bucket and third bucket, the specialized high schools. There are only 9. LaGuardia is a specialized high school. We know that one is the audition-based one. The other 8, these all are intense schools. Some of them, the founding 3, Bronx Science, Stuyvesant, and Brooklyn Tech, are very large schools. Brooklyn Tech being the largest, maybe 5,000. Different ways to think about them. They offer a lot of, they offer really rigorous education, but they're very intense. Of the 8, 3 are large, the ones I just mentioned. There is one that's mid-sized, that's Staten Island Tech. The rest are small. Of the 8, 6 focus on STEM, but they still offer really good humanities. I mean, Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, Brooklyn Tech. I mean, Brooklyn Tech has law program. Bronx Science has a Holocaust Studies Center. Stuyvesant offers many, many interesting humanities, English, and history classes. So you can really get strong humanities instruction, but there's no avoiding intensive math and science at the 6 science themed schools. There are 2 that are humanities based. That's Brooklyn Latin, which is an IB school, the International Baccalaureate, and High School for American Studies at Lehman College. That is also some, I don't know if that would qualify as an early college school, but 3 of the specialized high schools are also housed on CUNY college campuses, and they're the smaller ones. So High School for American Studies is actually, the school is in a little building across from the Lehman College, and students who attend that school, as well as the other 2, Queens High School for the Science and High School for Math, Science, and Engineering at City College. The perk is that in addition to high school classes, you can take classes at the college that you're located on. You can eat lunch in the cafeteria, use the college library. You may have physical education in the college gymnasium or in college facilities. So those are very nice options. And so even with specialized, there's a range and different ways to think about it and wrap your head around whether, which ones you want to apply to and if they're a good fit. And now I'm going to pass this back to Maurice to shift to the process.
Laura, amazing. Thank you so much. So we're going to transition a little bit into more of the nuts and bolts kind of conversation, particularly with respect to the SHSAT schools, the 8 schools that Laura just mentioned. So one of the first sort of key periods of time that happens in the application process is between October 1st and October 18th. So Laura mentioned that the application opens on October 1st. Everybody by then will have access to their MySchools account. And between those 2 dates, you'll have the opportunity to register for the SHSAT. When you register, and by the way, it's not first come, first serve. There is no first come, first serve phenomenon when you're working with the MySchools system, and we'll talk more about that in a second when it comes to the main application. But with respect to the SHSAT schools, during that registration period, I think it's important to also know that you're choosing the SHSAT schools that you want to apply to, up to 8, and putting them in your true preference rank order. So again, before October 18th, that's one of the first key dates in the application process, because you are literally picking the SHSAT schools and putting them in rank order. You can make as many changes as you want, by the way, to that list and the rank order before October 18th. Now, for most public school students, you will take the test in school on October 30th, but there are some other dates for students who are in an independent school, students who are in a continuing school that goes from middle school to high school. For the most part, those students take the test on the weekend of November 16th and 17th. And then current ninth grade students take it later in early December. So again, you're picking those schools at the time of registration. One thing that has not changed with respect to eligibility for the SHSAT schools is how students are considered for offers. So there are 3 ways they're considered for offers. One is the score you get on your test, of course, because these schools are not looking at grades, they're not looking at attendance, they're not looking at test scores or anything like that other than the SHSAT score, as well as the choices of SHSAT schools you make during registration. So you could get the highest score in the city. If you don't select Brooklyn Tech, well, guess what? You're not going to get an offer to Brooklyn Tech. So you have to select the school in order to be considered for it. And then number 3, the number of offers that are made to each of these schools, which nobody knows yet. The DOE has not determined exactly how many offers are going to be made to these schools yet this year. However, those numbers tend to not change too dramatically from year to year. If you're interested in those numbers, you can see them either on the DOE website or in the MySchools system. Having said that, these are the official DOE score thresholds for each of the 8 schools last year. This is on the DOE website, so you can see this anytime you want. And by the way, I like that the DOE has also posted the thresholds for 9th graders who took the test for 10th grade admission. You'll see those cutoffs on the DOE website as well. So one thing I just want to point out, a couple things. One is that these scores typically change slightly from year to year. So these are not the exact same thresholds that will be for your students taking the test this year. They will change slightly, most likely. But it gives you a sense of what the cutoffs are. And you can see that the lowest qualifying score, what the DOE calls lowest qualifying score last year, was the 492 for Brooklyn Latin. So in other words, that was the lowest score for which any offer was made to a specialized high school for all of the 8 schools. Okay, I'm going to shift gears for a second also to talk about audition programs. LaGuardia High School, which is the 3rd bucket that Laura mentioned, which is the 9th specialized high school that does not require the SHSAT. But not only LaGuardia, I want to talk for a second about all the other audition programs across the city as well, because one of the significant improvements I think the DOE has made over the past few years are that there are common audition guidelines and requirements. So if I'm auditioning and applying to a drama program at LaGuardia and a drama program at Frank Sinatra High School and a drama program at Talent Unlimited, it's the same audition. It's the same materials that I'm submitting by December 4th, by the way. If you haven't already seen this page on the DOE website, it gives a lot of really, really valuable information about not only the guidelines for these auditions, but it gives a lot of great videos and tips and documents that you can use to help prepare for these auditions. So if you were to go to this page on the DOE website, and by the way, all you have to do, go to the homepage of the DOE and type in the search function, high school auditions, and you'll get to this page. This is there for you right now. If you click on one of these arts disciplines, you'll get a lot more rich information and details about the audition guidelines and all of the tips and videos and so forth that I just mentioned. So again, audition materials, which by the way, we're going to get to this in a second, but they are uploaded directly through your MySchools account. From the dashboard, you'll see a special link where you upload additional materials, including audition materials, through the dashboard of your MySchools account before December 4th. So you've got time to do this. Now, even before October 1st, even before you are able to log into your MySchools account, you can search and filter and look at schools. If you haven't already started familiarizing yourself with the system, it's a good exercise to undertake. You will get login access from your school counselor, whether you're in a public school or an independent school. You'll get login access before October 1st. You'll be able to log into your account. And that's the point at which you can start doing things like registering for the SHSAT and even beginning to fill out your application, although you have plenty of time until early December to do that. But I just wanted to point out now, if you haven't done this already, to go to myschools.nyc, you can start browsing and filtering and sorting, and there are a lot of drop-down menus and ways that you can do that. Now, after you are able to log in, after October 1st, from the dashboard, as soon as you log in, one of the key pages that I always encourage families to look at is called your profile page. So usually from the dashboard, there's a little link. It's not entirely obvious, but it's called Edit Profile, where you can access this page and see all this pertinent information. Now, I want to just caution everyone that not every one of these data points is available immediately. In other words, Screen Group, for example, may take a week or so after October 1st for the DOE to populate this information. So don't get worried if you don't see everything right away. We're going to be talking a little bit about random number or lottery number tonight as well. But I want to preface that conversation by saying that you can see that you can access your random number on this profile page. However, before you see your random number, you have to begin your application. I'm using my words carefully because those are literally the words that are on the dashboard. For the link that you click on, it says begin application. And then answer a couple of questions where the DOE asks you, does this information look correct? Some consent questions, et cetera, where you look and make sure that everything is okay. And you say, okay, I consent, everything looks okay. After you do that, after you begin the application and answer those few initial questions, that is when the lottery number will populate on the MySchools profile page. So I like to point that out because sometimes families go immediately to the profile page and they don't see their lottery number. But we're going to hold that thought because we're going to get back to lottery number and course marks and all that good stuff. So effectively, between October 1st and December 4th, which is the application deadline, you can fill out your application. Your main, what Laura mentioned is the main application, that first bucket that everybody fills out. And you fill that out however you want. You can rank programs, which you should do in preference order. We'll get back to that in a moment. You fill out, you populate these choices. You can see an example on the page in front of you with programs you're interested in. Remember, Laura mentioned that some schools have more than one program you can apply to, right? So at the top left-hand part of your screen, you see an example of a school that has 5 programs you can apply to. You're not necessarily going to be interested in all of the programs, depending upon the interest area, but you can conceivably apply to more than one program at a given school, and each one of those programs takes up one spot on the application. So by December 4th, again, not first come, first serve, you can make as many changes as you want before December 1st. Nobody's going to look at anything. Those schools aren't going to look at anything. The DOE is not going to look at anything until after December 4th. But this is sort of one of your primary obligations, so to speak, between October 1st and December 4th is to figure out how to fill out that application. We're going to give you some tips tonight on a little strategy on how to optimize those choices. And then, of course, as Laura mentioned, separate from the main application are the other 2 buckets. So the specialized high schools do not go on this main application. You apply to them and register for them separately. Now, actually, I want to go back to this page because, again, you're applying to a program within a school. So if I'm looking at a school's program on their profile page in MySchools, and I click on the individual program within that school, I'm going to see something like this, a page that looks something like this, which starts to give me a sense of overall demand for that program. Overall demand. How many applicants were there for that program last year? How many seats were available for that program last year? What was the applicant to seat ratio? Which starts to give you a sense of demand for these programs. You know, obviously there's a difference between a program where there were 30 applicants per seat and a program where there were 5 applicants per seat, or 4 or 3 applicants per seat, right? So we want to look and see what the overall demand was for these programs, because that is going to play a big role in your chances of getting into a program. I also want to point out on this page a couple things. One is for students with an IEP, for students in an independent school that might have an IESP, you may qualify. This is not a choice, but you may qualify for this separate students with disabilities applicant pool. Completely separate applicant pool. You are literally, I hate to use the word competing, but you're literally competing only against students in that other applicant pool, whichever one you may be in. So the majority of students fall into the general ed applicant pool automatically. Some students with IEPs or IESPs fall automatically into that separate applicant pool. And you can see that sometimes the demand is different depending upon what seat group, as the DOE calls it, what seat group you're in. By the way, you're also I'm gonna keep referring to your MySchools profile, because seat group is another thing you'll see on your MySchools profile page. Am I in the general ed applicant? Am I in the general ed seat pool? Am I in the students with disabilities seat pool? If you look at that on your profile page and you think, wait a second, I thought I'd be in another seat group, see your counselor and ask your counselor about that. One last thing before we move on to the other slides is I want to mention that per the DOE, last year, the average demand of choices last year, the average applicant to seat ratio of choices last year was 8-1. I just put that up here because one of the things you'll hear from your counselor is we want to sort of avoid a scenario where you're only choosing the most high demand, highly sought after programs, right? It's sort of intuitive. Like if I'm only picking programs that have a 15-1, 20-1 or more applicants to seat ratio, well, that can be a risky proposition. I'm competing against a lot of other students for a single seat. So one of the things as a counselor that we look for is that there's a variety. You're not only choosing high demand programs. And I can tell you, because I've been doing this a long time, that there are some quality programs that have lower applicant to seat ratios. And that's not just so in other words, I don't want you to think that just because demand is lower in terms of ratio, that is not necessarily a quality program. There are some bigger schools that offer a lot of seats. That's one reason, only, just one reason why the ratio could be smaller. So talk to your counselor about this if you have questions about, other programs that you can sort of mix into your application that might have lower demand. The other thing that you're going to end up talking to your counselor about is these admissions methods. You're going to hear the DOE talk about admissions methods. And I always say that, again, when I put my counselor hat on, I want to work with a family to determine what the optimal mix of admissions methods are. Because depending upon the admissions method, programs will consider applicants in different ways. So if a program has a screened admissions method, I know that there's some kind of academic screen. If they're screened with an assessment, I know there's some kind of assessment or an extra assignment that students have to do. And I'm going to get back to that in a moment. If I look at an open program, I know it's a lottery-based program. Audition, there's an audition required, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this page, but I do want to say that it's important to know how candidates are considered for the programs you're applying to, probably for obvious reasons, because I want to know, again, like, what are my chances? And I'm going to ask my counselor, like, based on my child's grades and lottery number, which we're going to talk about, and priority group, which we're going to talk about, like all these things, that's an important conversation to have with your counselor so that you are, optimizing your choices and really, leveraging things that you want to leverage and maybe sometimes mitigating against things that are not as strong. Everybody's application is different. So try to avoid the comparison game because it really is very subjective depending upon each individual student's circumstances. Now, I want to preface this slide by saying that, the one admissions method, the one type of program that a lot of people have on their radar are screened programs, which are only a subset of the hundreds of types of programs, throughout the city. Or I should say, hundreds of programs that represent other types of admissions methods throughout the city. But one program that is on everybody's minds are these screen groups. These are programs that place everybody in a screen group. It's sort of a hierarchy based on the average of your final 7th grade course marks in your major courses, in your core courses. The thresholds you see in front of you are last year's citywide thresholds. I want to be really clear about that. These have not been refreshed for this admission cycle yet. And I expect maybe by the end of next week, you'll see these refreshed on the DOE website. Now, that's not to say that they're going to change dramatically. You might see that the threshold to be in the top screen group, the top 15% citywide, might be a 93.9 this year, might be a 94.2 this year. We don't know exactly. It's probably not going to change dramatically. But everybody falls into a screen group. And the reason why this is important for when you're applying to screened programs is because you're placed in a screen group for public school students on the lower threshold of either the citywide thresholds or your own school's top 15%, top 30%, et cetera. So for public school students, it's either or, citywide or your school thresholds, whichever one is lower. For students who are in an independent school, it's only based on the citywide thresholds. So based on last year's thresholds, you probably already have a pretty good idea of what screen group you might fall into. If I have a 97, well, I have a pretty darn good sense that I'm going to fall into the first screen group. That's kind of the idea. You will know for sure. I go back to the MySchools profile page. You will know for sure once you log into the system after October 1st and you go into your MySchools profile page, because those screen groups will be there. Now, again, with the caveat that the DOE sometimes takes a week or two more after October 1st, they may not be there immediately. And for independent school students as well, don't forget your counselor has to enter your grades because the DOE doesn't know you. So your counselor has to enter grades and create a MySchools account for you. And that screen group also will likely not show up immediately in your MySchools profile. So be patient. It's going to show up within a week or two. Before I go into the next slide, I also just want to mention that I don't want you to think that if you don't fall into the top screen group that you're doomed, that you can't apply to screen programs. There are plenty of screen programs that will take students from the lower screen groups. Now, that's not to say that there aren't really highly selective screen programs that will not. This is another conversation to have with your counselor. So in other words, if you've got screen programs on your list, and the next few weeks is a good time to identify that, what are the screen programs on my list? A good question for your counselor is, can you give me a sense based on what screen group it looks like I might fall into of what my chances might be for applying to these programs? Okay. The other type of screen program is a screen program with an assessment. So on the DOE website, this falls under the category of this is also going to be refreshed probably by the end of next week. So if you go to this page for screen programs with an assessment on the DOE website, you will see this kind of chart. It has about 25 or 30 schools on it across the city that are classified as these screen programs with an assessment, which basically means these programs have some kind of extra activity that students have to complete between October 1st and the deadline is, I believe, December 4th for all of these assessments. But you'll start to get a sense of what the assessments are for these schools. If you look now, these assessments are not official yet. So I encourage you to look back maybe by the end of next week, and you will see this page updated for this year's assessments. But it's important also to have this on your radar because your students, you don't want to be caught by surprise by what these assessments are and the fact that your students have to complete these assessments. It is pretty common that students will apply to at least some programs with an assessment on their application. Pretty common for that to happen. And the way you are considered for these programs is it's a weighted average. So basically, let's take the case of Nest Plus M, the school in the middle of the screen you see in front of you. Nest Plus M typically has a selection criteria that is split 50-50 between your screen group. It says average course grades in front of you, but it's actually your screen group. You're assigned a certain number of points based on the screen group you fall into, and Nest Plus M's assessment, which is usually an essay. So Nest Plus M happens to have a 50-50 formula, and it's a weighted average. The schools score your assessment, submit those scores to the central office of the DOE, and the DOE will assign a certain number of points based on the screen group you're in, and that will create a weighted average and your final score that determines where you stack up, how you're prioritized against other students that are trying to get into that program. Now, I just want to say, because this is going to come up later, we're going to talk about random numbers or lottery numbers. Where the lottery number plays a role for these programs is that it acts as a tiebreaker. So in other words, if I have the same overall weighted average score as another student, whatever lottery number I have serves as a tiebreaker. Hold that thought because I'm going to get back to lottery numbers a little bit later. Before I do, though, I forgot to mention the role of lottery numbers for screen programs. So again, screen programs without an assessment, just what I call pure screen programs. So you're put into a screen group. what determines the order you fall into within your screen group? Within your screen group. So let's say I fall into screen group 2. So based on last year's thresholds, I had a final course average of 91, which meant I fell into screen group 2 last year. Does that mean that I'm in front of somebody that's also in screen group 2 that has an average of 90? No, it does not. So once I'm in a screen group, it doesn't matter what my course average was. What determines the order in which I fall within my screen group is my lottery number. So that's the role of lottery number for screen groups. Okay, get back to lottery number. Hold that thought. Priority groups. There will be some programs you apply to that give priority to certain applicants over others. And this is really powerful because, as you can imagine, this is another thing that your counselor will look at and a question you should ask your counselor, which is, for the programs that I'm applying to, what do you think about the priority groups that I fall into for these programs and the implications of that? Because obviously, if I'm in a lower priority group, my chances of getting into a particular program are lower, right? So if I'm applying from a school that ends in 8th grade to a school that continues from middle school to high school, well, that program will always prioritize their own 8th grade students. So if I'm applying to School of the Future or Nest Plus M or the Borum Hill School or all the other continuing middle school to high schools across the city, if I'm applying to those schools from another school, I will always be in a lower priority group. Does that mean I can't get in? No. Does it mean it makes it harder? Absolutely. So the conversation I have with your counselor is to understand what priority group you're in. And by the way, when you're logged into your MySchools account, you're going to see, it's going to show you what priority group you fall into for the programs you're applying to. And I'm going to talk more about that in a second in terms of what you'll see in your MySchools account. But these are some of the priority groups. There's free and reduced price lunch. If you feel like your family may be, your child may be eligible for free and reduced price lunch because there are a group of schools that prioritize and allocate a certain percentage of seats for students who are eligible for free and reduced price lunch, regardless of whether or not you're in a public or an independent school, there's a set of maybe 25 or 30 schools. This is another chart that's on the DOE website that are part of that DIA or diversity in admissions group of schools. If you feel like you might be, as a public school student, you have to submit that blue card. That blue card where you fill in your family income, you have to submit that. If you're in an independent school, talk to your counselor about whether or not you might be eligible, because that can be powerful. All these things might be powerful. There are 6 schools in Manhattan that just introduced Manhattan priority, and they're at the bottom of the screen. And those schools are targeted to take up to 75% of their seats from Manhattan. So you want to pay attention to these things and talk to your counselors about the implications of being in a particular priority group, because that can be powerful. Let's talk about lottery numbers. Every student who participates in this process will get a random number, or what the DOE calls lottery number. Completely random. It has nothing to do with when you log into your MySchools account. So don't worry if it takes you a couple days. That's not going to mean you get a worse lottery number. It has nothing to do with your grades. It has nothing to do with where you go to school or where you live. Completely random. Everybody gets a random number. It's a long string of digits based on the hexadecimal system. You may know, some of you may know that very well, better than I do. It's a long string of digits. You can tell a lot by the first digit. And I want to be really clear here, because I hear this from families all the time. They tell me that lottery number is everything. It's just one big lottery system, and that is absolutely not accurate. Lottery number can play more of a role or less of a role depending upon the kind of program you're applying to. If I'm applying to an open program, remember we talked about open admissions method? Well, lottery number is going to play a big role, right? Because it's going to determine the order in which I'm considered for an open program. If I'm applying to a screen program, lottery number determines where I am within my screen group. I could be in screen group 1, remember, based on my grades, and have a terrible lottery number, but guess what? I'm still going to be ahead of somebody that's in screen group 2 that has a fabulous lottery number, right? So lottery number is not the be all and end all. If I'm applying to an audition program, what's the role of the lottery number there? The lottery number, kind of similar to screen programs with an assessment. It's a tiebreaker. So there, it's not uncommon for more than one student to get the same score on an audition, in which case the lottery number serves as a tiebreaker. So lottery numbers can play a larger or smaller role depending upon the kind of program I'm applying to. But in a vacuum, because I know families are always interested in, well, what does this number mean? Is it strong? Is it weak? What is it? The stronger lottery numbers in a vacuum, without looking at any of these other considerations, including demand, by the way. Remember, demand is really important. Applicant to seat ratio, really important. I could have the worst lottery number in the world, but if I'm applying to a program that has a 2-to-1 applicant to seat ratio, guess what? My chances are going to be a lot better than if the program has a 10-to-1 or 20-to-1 applicant to seat ratio. But in a vacuum, the strongest lottery numbers start with, that first digit starts with 0, 1, 2, 3, the smaller numbers. So if you know anything about this hexadecimal system, the first digits go from 0 to 9, and then from the letters A like Apple to F like Frank. So 0 to 9, A to F. That's the whole range of this hexadecimal system for the first digit. So I know my lottery number is not as good, as weaker if I have like a high letter, C, D, E, F, okay? But again, please talk to your counselor about the implications of your lottery number and how much of a role it's going to play, and whether or not you can leverage your lottery number for a stronger one, and if it's possible to mitigate against the lottery number that's not as strong, because there are ways to do that, and your counselor can help you with that. New feature that the DOE is introducing, and you'll hear about this over the next few weeks. The DOE has introduced a feature where you can start to get a sense of your chances for some programs. And so what you're going to see, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because the DOE is holding full information sessions about this very topic in a few weeks, but you will hear them talk about these bars, this graphical representation that can start to give you a better sense of what your chances are. And by the way, this is personalized and customized. So in other words, this is only when you log into your account, because it's based on your lottery number, your screen group, your priority group, all these things we've been talking about, demand. It's based on all these things. It's pretty general directional information about your chances. There are 3 bars. If you see 3 bars, you have a really, really strong chance. In fact, about a 99% chance, according to the DOE, of getting into that program. So Global Learning Collaborative at the bottom, I have 3 bars, really good chance of getting into that program. If I see a program with 1 bar, really small chance of getting into that program. Most programs, based on our understanding of what we're hearing from the DOE, will fall in the medium category and we'll have 2 bars. But it's good to know this information, right? Because it is personalized and customized. I also want to point out that you can see Beacon High School. Why does it have 3 dots? Well, the reason for that is because there are some programs that will not give you bars. And that's because Beacon happens to be a screen program with an assessment, and it's based on partially on the assessment. So you will not get bars for any screen programs with an assessment. You will not get bars for audition programs. You will not get bars for language criteria programs. You will not get bars for transfer programs. You will see those 3 dots instead when the system cannot give you any bars. Okay, how many should you list? What you may also find interesting is, you ready for this? The DOE is going to give you the option of selecting more than 12 programs this year. Yes, you heard that right. The DOE is going to give you the option of selecting more than 12 programs this year. Now, what they are recommending, so in other words, in your MySchools, on your MySchools application, you will start to see this in October, the ability to select more than 12 programs on your application. Now, that doesn't mean that the fundamentals of the process have changed in terms of how the matching process works, the algorithm, priorities, screen groups, all the things we've been talking about. The fundamentals of the process really don't change. But you have the option of selecting more than 12. Now, I can tell you that the recommendation, I don't want to speak for the DOE, but I suspect the recommendation from the DOE is still to fill up all 12, at least, right? And the big reason for that is because nearly every year, as long as I can remember, for students that fill out all 12 choices, this is aggregate across the city, you have almost 100% chance, 97%, 95% in that area of getting matched to one of your 12 choices on the application if you fill out all 12. That is something totally under your control and a goal that you should be working towards with your counselor. Is it easy to list all 12 programs that you're willing to consider? No, it's not. But your counselor can help you. The more, the better. The more programs you list on your application, the higher the probability is of getting matched to one of the programs on your application. So we want to, at the very least, we want to fill up 12 choices. And again, this year for the first time, I think in the modern history of this process, you have the option of selecting more than 12. Ranking. This has not changed. The rationale, the logic by which you should rank programs has not changed one bit. You should rank in true preference order. When the matching algorithms runs, it's going to assume that you're selecting these programs in your true preference order, because it's going to start at the top of your list and try to match you to the top choice first. If you get into your top choice school, that's it. It stops there. So you don't want to play games with how you rank programs on your application. The other reason is because schools don't see how you rank programs on your application. Even though you will hear things like, you have to put us first, or, it's a wasted choice if you put something second. Absolutely not true. So be careful when you hear these kinds of myths. If I ever got matched to my 9th choice or my 10th choice, which statistically is not likely, but if that ever happened, all that means is that I didn't get one of my top 7 or 8 choices. It doesn't mean that the algorithm somehow jumped down to a program that was easier to get into and skipped over my top choice programs. I also want to say that if you have a program that's a long shot, but it's your first choice, put it first. I get this question a lot from families. They say, well, should I put it first? It seems like a wasted first choice, and then I'm not going to get my second choice. No, it doesn't work like that. If something's your first choice, even if it's a long shot, put it first. If you don't get your first choice, your second choice effectively becomes your new first choice. And guess what? You can still get matched to that second choice ahead of somebody that picked it first. That same program first. Why? Because of all the different factors that we talked about tonight. Screen group, lottery number, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. The application on the right is the kind of application we like to see as a counselor. Filled out all 12 choices. And this year, again, you have the option of selecting more than 12, but filled out at least 12. Highly diversified. Didn't only choose the most highly selected programs, like student A did. We get nervous when we see the applications like the one student A has, where they only chose 8 choices, they left some choices blank, and they're only highly selected programs, because there's a higher risk in that scenario of the DOE not being able to give you one of those 8, and then they place you somewhere that you didn't choose. We don't want to have that happen. It's not a high percentage of students, but it happens to a small percentage of students every year. We want to avoid that. Now, I mentioned guaranteed backup on student A, because there are some cases where a student, if you have a zoned high school, if you live in Manhattan, you don't have one. If you live in Staten Island, everybody has one. In other boroughs, it depends on where you live. If you have a zoned high school, you can choose your zone program, and it's a guarantee. Put it on the bottom of your application because it's a guarantee. So you want to list programs that you prefer above it. That's one guarantee. The other guarantee is if I go to a continuing school, I list my continuing school below all of my other preferred program choices, and it's a guaranteed backup. Okay. I'm going to turn it back to Laura, I believe, at this point.
Did you want to just cover the results timeline?
You want me to cover this? Absolutely, Laura. So spring of 2025, in the spring of 8th grade, this is sort of the staggered nature by which results are issued for different kinds of schools in New York City. So if you happen to be a family that's applying to different kinds of schools, this is sort of the timeline by which it happens. So if you're applying to independent schools and public schools, you should feel pretty good that independent school results don't come out very much, very far apart from when public school results are scheduled to come out. A lot of independent school results are scheduled to come out by the end of February. March 6th is the tentative release date for all public results. All the public results from the 3 buckets that Laura talked about come out at once, simultaneously. The main application, SHSAT, if you applied to those schools, and LaGuardia, if you applied to LaGuardia. It all comes out at once. And if you get more than one from, multiple buckets, the DOE gives you a period of time where you can choose. We're not going to talk a lot tonight about the waitlist process. We'll save that for another webinar, but there is a waitlist process for public schools. So, stay tuned. We'll offer a webinar on that later in the year. I think I am going to turn it over to Laura at this point.
Great. Thank you so much. And we covered a lot. And I know some of your heads may be spinning a little with all the different criteria and priorities. Just take a deep breath. You don't have to master it as of today. But there are some things you can do to get the process going, and you will keep circling back to the information as you need it. First is that you will log on to MySchools account on October 1st when it becomes available. And it may be a little later if you're in an independent school, but if you're in a New York City public school, you will get your activation code probably ahead of October 1st, and it will go live on October 1st. Log in. And if you plan to apply to specialized high schools, one of the 8 test-in ones, register for the SHSAT when you log into your account, which you've activated hopefully on October 1st. If you are applying from independent schools or you are moving to New York City, a few special things. So Maurice actually talked about it. If you attend a private school, parochial school, maybe even charter school, speak to whoever is in charge of high school applications, exmissions, sometimes it's referred to. It may not be, the title may not be guidance counselor or counselor the way it is in New York City schools, but there should be someone who is in charge of that. Figure out who that is and talk to them, and they can help you set up with a MySchools account so you can activate an application. If you run into problems, always start with your school and ask for help there. If you do run into problems, you can always go to a family welcome center, and we'll provide links to that when we do follow up in the follow-up message. And you can also on InsideSchools get all those links. Family welcome centers are they're basically enrollment centers for New York City public schools, and there are throughout the city in every borough, and you can always make an appointment, go there, and they can help you activate your MySchools account and application, help you register for the SHSAT if you're interested in that. If you're new to New York City, if you're planning to move to New York City, you cannot participate in the application until you are actually a resident. So if any of you are watching it knowing that you're going to be in New York City by the time your child starts high school next year, if you don't live in New York City already, result you cannot participate in the application process. If you move in the fall before the application deadline, you may participate in it, and I encourage you to do that. And so if you know you're going to move before the application deadline, December 4th, start doing your work. You won't be able to set up a MySchools account or activate the application, but you can do that quickly once you move in to the city. But you have to be a resident to actually participate in it. What you can do now is explore your options, and I will give you some tips in a minute. always start with your guidance counselor. I know that in our SNAP poll, close to half the people responded have not gotten any guidance yet. Some schools will offer guidance to 7th grade families as sort of a heads up of what's coming down. Hopefully, your guidance counselor, they're the person who's supposed to help you with it. So if you haven't gotten any indications yet, maybe ask, when will you start getting support? Start attending open houses and fairs. Schools have independent websites, and I'll show you how to find those out. And also on MySchools, there is a general calendar, events calendar, where you can see dates for schools that have open houses and fairs. And but I also encourage you to go to schools' independent websites, because some schools may require that you register, and that may not be obvious on the MySchools account. But now's the time to start researching schools. And if you find a school you're interested in, you don't have to immediately check when there's an open house or tour, and see if it's online or in person. Some may offer both. Use InsideSchools. We are a comprehensive guide to New York City public schools. We offer a lot of information on individual schools. We also offer a lot of guidance on how to navigate the application system, how to support your kids in school. And you can also ask us individual questions, and we will answer them. Definitely MySchools. That is the official directory, the official application. That's where you can find a comprehensive, it may not be completely comprehensive list of open house and tours, but it'll have the majority of them. You need to check MySchools regularly. I've already mentioned school websites. And think about the best way that you organize things and keep track of information. It may be old-fashioned pencil and paper, stick it on the refrigerator reminders. If you're into spreadsheets, try that. But think of a system to keep track of it, because there'll be a lot of things to keep track of, not just the schools you like, schools you don't like, an area to add notes once you visit the school, little things like that. But you can do a lot now. And help each other out. If your friend gets sick, a parent, fellow parent sick, and they can't make it to an open house, offer to take their child with them, and then you can report back the parent perspective, and the child can report back the student perspective. Maybe organize with the PTA a way to keep track of open house dates for the popular schools that kids at your middle school many apply to. And so then maybe once a week you can blast out an email, that little things like that you can help each other out while you're researching schools. And we can go on to the next one. Okay. InsideSchools. I mentioned we're a comprehensive guide to New York City public schools. On our main site, which is over 20 years old, we have a profile of every school in the city, but we have a profile of every high school in the city. And there is a lot of data, there's a review, and think of the profile page as a portal to everything you need, to all the information you need, because we also link directly to that school's MySchools directory page. We provide links to other DOE reports on that school. We also have a guided search where you answer a few questions, and you will get a list of schools that you're eligible to attend, which you can then filter and sort through by various means. And that guided search is informed by the official high school directory data. We actually get that from the DOE, so that we have admissions guides to help you navigate the process. Some of the things I mentioned today, you'll find in more detail in the guides. We also, for the past year, have been helping new migrant families and older unaccompanied youth get placements. If you are a counselor at a school, or you work in an organization with families who are newly arrived families, please know that InsideSchools is working hard to support them. Reach out to us if you need guidance or you want to partner with us. And we offer free weekly newsletters in English and Spanish. And I write that newsletter. Every week, there's an admission section, and it is updated with the latest information, admissions, reminders, links, and everything. We also have a community site, InsideSchools Plus, where families can post questions, get admissions updates, and also communicate with fellow families. And we do have an Ask a Question. And I'm now going to quickly share my screen to just show you a few quick things on InsideSchools and MySchools. So, see, there we go. So this is InsideSchools, InsideSchools.org. And I'm just going to give a really, really quick tour because it is getting late. First thing you'll see, I mentioned you can ask us questions. I'm not kidding. If you click on the link, that'll take you to a form. My browser is slow. My apologies. But you can ask us a question. You click on that. If you browse our resources, that'll take you to a guide. I'm going to refresh this because I think that my Wi-Fi is down. Oh dear. Okay, well, that's not great. For some reason, the Wi-Fi is not working, or it's slow at the moment. The other thing, no, it's that if you'll click on schools, you'll see drop down and you select high school, and that will take you to the page where there's high school guides and a link to the guided search where you answer a few questions. Over here, you'll see this little person. You can create an account on InsideSchools, and by doing so, you can save your search results from the guided search, and you can also favorite schools and create a list of favorite schools that you can go back to. Now, I wish I could show you, unfortunately, my screen is frozen. I wish I could show you a quick profile page, because on the profile page, when you scroll down, I'm going to see if I can, yeah, oh, maybe if I just do this and just go on another, maybe that's what I needed to do. Yeah, it's just a little slow. So oh, here we go. So real quickly, if you step on schools, high schools, you click on high schools over here, and then you'll see below it, we have information on how to apply, what to consider your options. If you start your search there, you click there, and I'm not going to go through it, but you answer a bunch of questions. They're just a few questions, and then you'll get a comprehensive list. If you notice over here, this little person thing, I'm logged in. I should be logged in. Yes, hello, Laura. I've already done a search. I saved a few searches. So when you get to the end of the guided search, you will get your search results. I used a Brooklyn address. It was actually my grandparents' address. And at that address, you'll see is zoned for James Madison High School. At the top of the list, you'll get the zoned. And then you will get a very long list of schools, which you can narrow. Remember, we talked about the different options that you can, if you want to just look at the specialized high schools that require an exam, you can look at audition schools, early college or international baccalaureate, career tech. You can also narrow the search by recommendations, and also you can filter. Remember demand for seats? We use the official directory data. So the default view is college readiness, which is the percent of students who graduate high school ready to take college level work at CUNY courses. It's a higher standard than just graduation rate. So schools with high college readiness will appear on top, but you can also filter by applicants per seat, high to low. You can filter applicants per seat, low to high. And that's very good because, for instance, if you want to find schools that are not as in demand but might be good, let's say you want to do audition schools, you can apply the filter and then sort the results by applicant per seats, low to high. And it should resort, and then you can start scrolling from the bottom up. And then of course as you come across schools, you can favorite them. And just as a quick look, you can look at, let's say, LaGuardia High School. That's because we're looking at, you'll see there is a review. There's lots of data, click around, and if you, we provide explanations and the source of the data. And then if you scroll down a bit, you'll see these programs and admissions. We're gonna update it too, but this is taken directly from the official directory. You can click on, you see this blue bar, that'll take you directly to the MySchools page for that school. And there's more data. And while we're on MySchools, I'm going to jump around a little. So myschools.nyc, this is the official directory. We're now out of InsideSchools, and you'll see, I don't have an application or a account. I'm not logged in, but I can still select high schools and then look at all the schools and start searching there. I don't have to wait until the application opens. And then at the top, you'll see calendar, which you can click on, but also if you go back to the home page, we talked about the events calendar. This is where you find open house dates. You'll see on the left, you can choose the admissions process. You might want to do high school. If you're applying to specialize, you'll click that. You'll click that. And then you select event type and you'll do open house and school tour. And then you start seeing the schools. And if there's a school in particular you want to, you can type in the name. And that's pretty, and then also with resources, we have lots of guides you can click on. And the final thing, the last two things is InsideSchools Plus, which is our community website. It's free to join. We do ask that you just create an account, but you'll see this is sort of like social media for New York City public school parents, where you share ideas and information. And I encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. This is our most recent one. As you can see, opening reminders, we put some news in there. We always add free opportunities. We have a massive free program section, which I should have shown you, but if you click on that in resources, you'll see. And then under Finder School is all the admissions information. And I update this every week with lots of different links where you can learn and reminders. And that is InsideSchools. We are here to help. And when I say we answer your questions, we answer your questions. If you have a specific question, I encourage you to research. And you have the time now. The application hasn't opened. Start using these resources and start building your list. And I'm going to stop sharing the screen and pass it back to Maurice. And I apologize for the frozen screen before.
Laura, anything else you wanted to add on this screen?
On this, for this one, no, I think what we covered. So we had the InsideSchools main site, InsideSchools Plus. We have a phone number and WhatsApp. You can reach us by phone. You really can reach us. We're here for you. Obviously, always start with your school's guidance counselor, but we're here to answer questions. If you can't get support with your guidance counselor, or you can't get many questions answered, we're here for you to learn about the process, to discover schools, and to get your questions answered, and we can direct you to other help and support too.
Speaking of which, if you're interested in other supports, Laura's absolutely right. Your first line of defense is your school counselor. This is our business. If my team at NYC Admission Solutions, if you're interested in talking to us, we always have a complimentary 15-minute phone consultation to talk about how we can help your family. We have options, monthly membership, really affordable monthly membership, to support you throughout the entire process, all the way up to more individualized support. So contact us. We're happy to help you, again, with anything from pre-K all the way up through college admissions. So with that, we wanted to thank everyone for coming. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Stephanie and Gigi. And good luck, everyone. We're here for you, and we look forward to hearing from you. And follow us, because we're going to be doing more sessions and sharing more information. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter.
Letters. So the DOE also, didn't mention, they also have admissions emails you can sign up for reminders. That's very key. And if you sign up for the InsideSchools newsletter, we always link to the link where you can sign up for DOE. We will be sharing recordings of this. And we'll also be sharing it on Inside Schools website. And I believe we have a real snap quick survey at the end. We ask everyone to, if you would mind just answering that quickly.
Thank you for remembering that. Yes, after the webinar ends, that will automatically pop up. So thank you for taking just 2 minutes out of your time. We would love your feedback. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.